Hello everyone. Today I will talk about assessment for growth, self-assessment and learner autonomy, and I will mention dynamic assessment and Vygotsky approaches. Okay, firstly, I will explain self-assessment. What is self-assessment? Self-assessment empowers learners to evaluate their own progress, identify strengths, and recognize areas for improvement. This approach shifts assessment from a teacher-centered activity to learner-centered reflection. There are some key focus areas which are developing awareness of learning processes, taking responsibility for progress, and building metacognitive skills. And we have some self-assessment tools. First one we can say checklist. We learners identify what they can already do. Other one is CFR can do statements. Clear goals help learners monitor improvements. For example, A1 level, you know that you can understand familiar words and simple phrases. A2 level, you can communicate in simple routine tasks like that. And we can use learning journals. Reflection develops metacognitive awareness. And the last one is portfolios. Portfolios helps us to development, achievement, and progress tracking. And portfolios show learner growth over time. Why self-assessment matters? It encourages autonomy, builds confidence, promotes reflection, makes learning visible. Students become active participants in assessment. And I will mention learner autonomy. Henry Hoke's definition, the ability to take charge of one's own learning. There are some key components: setting personal learning goals, monitoring progress toward those goals, evaluating performance outcomes, making informed decisions about learning strategies. Self-assessment is a fundamental component of autonomy. We cannot separate them. They are emerging together, empowering learners to become responsible decision makers in their own learning journey rather than passive recipients of instruction. And self-assessment and learner autonomy helps us to gain reflection, responsibility, confidence, and independence. Students become active participants in assessment thanks to self-assessment and learner autonomy. But of course, there are some benefits and limitations of self-assessment. First, let's talk about the benefits. Increased confidence in language abilities, enhanced learner autonomy and independence, deeper reflection on learning processes, greater sense of ownership and responsibility. Limitations, there are some, of course, limitations. Potential overestimation or underestimation of abilities. For example, one student can say that I can do this, but you are assessing her and you can say that no, he cannot, but he is overestimation herself. So there is a limitation for self-assessment. And it requires training to develop accurate self-assessment skills, needs teacher guidance for reliability, may be influenced by emotions or motivation. And there is a dynamic assessment, a transformative approach. In traditional assessment, there is a static measurement of current performance through standardized tests and fixed criteria. Focuses on what learners can do now without support. But dynamic assessment is an interactive process, integrating teaching, learning, and assessment through mediation. Focuses on learning potential and what learners can achieve with support. And we will mention Vygotsky theory because dynamic assessment and Vygotsky theory cannot separate from each other. Vygotsky theory says According to Vygotsky, learning is a social process. It does not happen individually, but through interaction with others. So, the teacher plays an important role by guiding and supporting the learner. There is an interaction with teacher and the learner. And Vygotsky explained this with the idea that what learners can do with help today, they can do independently tomorrow. So, this shows that learning is always supported and developing. These ideas, we cannot separate them. So, we can see in the slide that Vygotskian theory transition zone, and it leads us to dynamic assessment as the practical application. Learning through interaction, mediation, support in learning, guided development, assessment through interaction, and development in process. Dynamic assessment transforms Vygotskian theory into classroom practice by integrating learning, support, and assessment into a single interactive process. And there is an example that how self-assessment and dynamic assessment work together. We know that dynamic assessment rules with the Vygotskian approaches. These and speaking activity, for example, students complete a communicative speaking task. Then they are making a self-assessment. Learners evaluate their own performance, like saying, did I use complete sentences? Did I use past tense correctly? Was my pronunciation clear? What should I improve next time? Then there is a dynamic assessment. Teacher mediation helps learners improve performance. For example, students say, yesterday I go to park. Teacher facilitate and say that what is the past tense of go? Yesterday I went to the park, so that it helps to learner. And there is a shared goal: encourage reflection, reduce anxiety, build learner autonomy, and support development. Assessment becomes a collaborative learning process thanks to self-assessment and dynamic assessment working together. And we cannot separate all of these, so we are bringing it all together. Self-assessment, learner autonomy, dynamic assessment, and Vygotskian theory. These approaches converge on a shared vision. Assessment is not only about grading, but about supporting learning. Learners and teachers share responsibility, interaction, reflection, and mediation work together to improve learning outcomes. The goal is to develop learners, not just measure them. And that was it. Thank you for your listening.